My name's Lee Dassler. I'm the executive director of the Mclaughlin Foundation. And this is the 5th year we've done this display. And in my memory, it began on a rainy Sunday morning in the summertime in the garden. And I was opening the gate and a couple came in with umbrellas. It was early Sunday and it was very unlikely that they would be coming into the garden. Came in, they were from out of state, Wisconsin is where they were from. And they looked around the garden and they said, this would be a perfect place to do a garden railroad system. And that they owned an extensive garden railroad set in Wisconsin and often shared it with the Milwaukee Botanical Garden. One of our current board members, who is a teacher, Nancy Coleman, had wanted to do a project with some of her kids. And my background's in architecture, and we thought, ooh, why don't we try to do something about the history of the railroad stations in the Oxford Hills and research the stations that are extant, measure them, and the kids can make models that are the right scale for these sorts of trains. And for the stations that are no longer extant, we can sort of figure out from old photographs basically their proportions, how big, how little they were, and the kids can make the models. And that's how it started. So Nancy corralled a bunch of brave kids. We did a lot of research, and the children figured out the proportions of the buildings and the model scale. We got lots of cardboard boxes and duct tape and X-Acto knives, and we made the frames for the stations. And then second and third graders went out and gathered all the botanical materials that we've used, the pine cones and the birch bark and the seed pods. And then we started gluing, using hot glue guns to put the materials on the various stations to try to make them look attractive and that's somewhat similar to their historic appearance. We not only have the garden railroad trains, but as you know, we have HO sets and a beautiful 2 Lionel sets. It's a very fun model train day. Do you want to be the engineer for a few minutes? Okay.
Do you want to take a scarf off?
Make it go a little faster. Go about right where my finger is.
What do you want to do, honey?
Back here, buddy. A bit of a stickler for history and reality when it comes to architecture. So I was always trying to make things as realistic as possible given the strange materials we were using. But Kristen Perry, our gardener, was the one who did some of the finishing touches on our little Norway station. And when she finished, you'll see there was a decorative element on the gable end of the Norway station, and she had portrayed that with the bottom furl of a pine cone. Nothing that we would have seen in reality, but it makes it look adorable, and it's wonderful, and it sort of loosened me up to think, yeah, we got to play with this as well. And I have to admit, I love the Waterford Lake House. It was impossible to do, and it wasn't a train station. Waterford and Otisfield in the Oxford Hills never had a train station, so we did the stagecoach stops. And Waterford it was the lake house where the stage stopped, and that's a very intricate one and was very fun to do. Also have been fortunate in having botanical loans from Longfellow's Gardens in Manchester, Maine, and from O'Donnell's. They've loaned us a lot of the miniature conifers, which are really prized botanical specimens that we couldn't afford to display. So we go down, drive and get them, bring them here for 4 days, and then drive them back to their nurseries. And it's a nice way for the nurseries to share their materials with us and to let people who are thinking about doing a garden railroad system in their yards see what kind of botanical materials you might want to use for this scale of a train. And it's just wonderful to see the kids' faces light up when they see the trains.
started this layout about 15 years ago, and we had graduated from an old battery-operated train to this ON30 that runs on HO track. And we started collecting the houses. We don't have any children, so we adopted some neighbors' children as grandchildren, and every time we got them Christmas gifts, then their parents would get us something for the train layout. We spent many hours on the floor, the living room, with a big 8-foot tree in the middle of it, playing with the trains over these 50 and 60 plus year old kids laying down on their stomach playing trains. And every time we came home from work, working nights, we had a line of kids on the front porch saying, "Can we come in and play?" And they did, and we had a ball with it. We called and they said we could bring them down here to Mclaughlin's gardens and put them up with the big train, the garden train. And I said, super, we get a chance to really enjoy them. People ask us what we want for Christmas. Some trees for the train show. We just tried to have a little commercial district. Got a lot of our stuff when places like Rose's or Woolworth's or different stores went out of business. They put it out at a discount, or after Christmas they didn't want to pack them away. I'd go back and I'd clean their shelves off. Most of them have the lights to fit up in the houses. A few of the smaller houses really were designed for candles, but we threw the candles out and run the lights in through the back. Considering it's traveled from Virginia here and then stored every winter and stuff, it's done pretty well. But the train's fairly indestructible. I couldn't tell you how many times I've dropped it on the floor, and it still repairs and fixes. They seem to love it. They like the train comes around to the front. They can see the people in the train. And the bigger ones, we let them run the train. That always makes kids happier if they can do something. They want hands-on.
The other train goes so it's loud so I can't hear you.
This is the train display that the Maine Garden Railway Society has done for the last 5 years for the Mclaughlin Gardens. It began in the year 2000 when I had moved back to Maine from Vermont and was contacted by Lee, and they wanted to do something with trains and trees. We've been doing this for 5 years, and it changes every year, and hopefully it gets better every year. We keep trying to find ways to improve it. Gradually, I found some people to help me and organize the Maine Garden Railway Society. We take a day to set up the track. The track is on tables that they use in the summertime for plant displays. So, as you probably know, the kids in the middle school, the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades, a few years ago, one of the projects that they had, that Nancy Holman, their teacher, wanted to introduce them to some history and some mathematics. So they have gone out and measured old railroad buildings, or buildings that have something to do with trains, like the trolley barn and some of the covered bridge up in Oxford and some of the railroad stations. So they were able to measure them or look at pictures and kind of guess at the measurement. And they had to convert this to plans approximately half-inch scale, because the garden trains are approximately half-inch scale. So they did that, and then another group of children gathered all kinds of natural materials, sumac, pine cones, acorns, and that sort of thing. And obviously one of the bridges is made out of birch limbs, and put that together. The idea for these buildings came from the New York Botanical Garden. So we've adapted that to South Paris, Maine.
we got inspired to do this from an exhibit at the New York Botanical Garden about 5 or 6 years ago called Trains and Trees. We went trees and trains because we are a garden. So first we had to get some history, and we had to research the railroads here in the Oxford Hills. We had to find out which buildings were still here, and did a little hunting and some of the bridges, and I went out and took some pictures of the ones that are extant that were too far afield to take the children to. The kids actually went to the trolley house. A couple of fourth graders went with me to the trolley barn with a measuring tape and actually measured it. We also walked all around the South Paris station. Some of the buildings that we only had pictures for, we had to estimate the size by judging the size of a doorway, taking the size of a normal doorway, and then actually estimating the size from that. And that was a lot of math involved. We learned that the garden scale train is a 1:24 ratio, so we had to do a lot of math. And once we had the sizes figured out, Lee Dassler made the bases out of cardboard. And then we got out the glue guns because some of the little kids had gathered all the materials and other people had helped gather materials, and we started gluing on the acorn caps and the sycamore and all the fun things, and the pine cone. The middle grade children did a lot of the math and history, and some of the older children helped with the glue guns.
During the 4 days of the Trees and Trains exhibit at the Mclaughlin Foundation, there are other activities. The gift shop is open to the public so that patrons can buy gardening presents for their friends and relatives. Inside the house are railroad displays and railroad-related gifts people can buy. On the last day of the exhibit, the winning raffle ticket is drawn for the H.O. layout built and displayed by the Great Falls Model Railroad Club of Lewiston and Auburn. The book, The Polar Express, is read to the children by a Mclaughlin Foundation volunteer.
Pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now what would you like for Christmas?" Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. But though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe.
West Minot. All right.
Oh, cool, they got a camera there.
What's that? Oh, a movie camera?
Yeah, cool.
Oh, my God.
We enjoyed making this Train Time show. Thank you for watching.